Is the real power?
Is Bannon the real power?
Yeah. And then Bo
He
would be
got rich
Trump,
off of
the
Chinese gold
loudmouth
farmers.
frontman. And
I'm Trump?
actually, I should probably be Bannon.
Yeah, but you don't like World of Warcraft.
He's also the worst.
That's
It's like, think about 80s nerd pop culture. His brain is scanning through
huh?
movies.
I'm getting the live
I
stream
just
going.
gave it to you. It was perfect.
Wait a second.
Have we done
Did you ever do the Golden Girls one? But we kind of do it because I'm like,
I'm pretty
was
sure
it for
I did it.
National Women's Day? We should be like prominent women.
Oh, that's a
Prophet
good
said,
point.
no,
This is going to be like 2
Michael
weeks
B. Mary
removed by the
Curie.
time it's posted from International Women's
we
Day.
could reference it.
Yeah. We're celebrating it at the time of recording.
Whatevs. Did I do? No. I'm pretty sure I. Yeah. Well, I don't think I've done this, but it's possible it's a double dip. Anyway, let's.
From the Peter Venkman of this episode, it's like, yes, Crofton, yes.
No, it's good. Hodgins got me on the right track. That's good. Okay.
Wow, loaded right into 4 viewers. Hello, people. Hello, folks.
All right.
I'm just gonna
Hello,
Hello, they're
everybody.
bots. It's all bots out there. Don't you know how the internet works?
I don't.
They're
Oh,
bots.
sorry. Yeah,
If I was programming
that's fine. You know, it would make sense if it was bots because I am a big friend to the AI on this show.
I like
so,
how the bots, in order to seem human, would just randomly insult everyone. The bots are just like, look at this fat loser. Like, stupid bots. I can't tell the difference between them and reality.
Yeah, no, that's how it would be on what's the word? Twitch. Yeah, that's it. We're programming a bot for Twitch.
oh, by
It
the
has
way,
to
you might
insult someone's opinion.
appreciate this. I only saw the news article. I didn't see the actual thing. But you know how they do live streams on Twitch and they've got the talk show channel. They were
Is that what we do?
doing a dog sledding live stream for a competition. I thought Mike would
Dog
kind of like
sledding?
would find that cool. Yeah, it's dog sledding.
Hey, it just
I find it cool how I could have been playing Zelda for an hour, but we're still
All
not
right.
started.
All right, fine.
well, I just wanted to follow up on that
Crafton's getting cranky.
thread about
It's true. We've been here for an hour, Mike.
the AI bots. What's that
Okay.
test of AI?
The
You know the guy
Turing test.
who invented computers?
Turing test. It's a Turing test.
It- Yeah, I feel like if people actually wanted to make an AI pass the Turing test, they would just make it be like a troll instead of trying to like legit fool a human being through conversation. They would just make it act like a troll. Where you're like, "How are you today?" He's like, "You look fat." Like, "Yeah, it's a human." And then at the very instant, everyone would think the AI was like, if it just trolled everyone.
Okay, Crofton, you got your intro. But it's a funny
Yes.
joke, Mike. But I see like he's got the look of someone who is gonna start having a fit soon.
I've been here a long time now.
All right. Good, bad, or bullshit. Hello, live stream viewers. We're gonna start recording a show. There's no intro music because I put it in the podcast later. We just kind of start up now. All right, here we go. Good, bad, or bullshit. Episode 186 starts in 5.
Hang on a sec, Bo. Hang on.
What? Just kidding.
We haven't started yet. We're just.
All
It's
right.
still. I know it's an hour. It's crazy. All right. We'll. So you're gonna be running the bath? Okay. All right. Here we go.
Jesse's gonna hear all about how Mike was late tonight. All right. Good, bad, or bullshit. Episode 186 in 5, 4.
Hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. My name is Crofton Steers. I am the Marty McFly of this podcast. With me, as are with me every week, are the Doc Brown of this podcast. I'm talking about Michael Hodgins. Welcome, Michael.
Hello. Yeah, I think it's a double dip. But go ahead.
And of course, the Biff Tannen of this podcast. I'm talking about Mo Schwartz. Mo.
I hate shit. I hate it.
It's true.
Biff, every
was-
man.
Was that a double dip?
I think so. The dot, when you said the dot, I was like, it's tweaking a memory.
All right. Well, anyways, I didn't.
No one's
double
fact
dip.
checking this, Crofton.
So, how are you gentlemen doing today?
I'm pretty good. Looking forward to doing a show finally. Because
Yeah, we missed a week.
Yeah, and you know it's just getting to be summer. we did an episode on daylight savings time, and today I actually heard that we're moving the clocks again, and I was like, "Thank you, Jesus! Thank you for that extra hour of sunlight I'm gonna have. I don't care if I lose sleep. I want that sunlight."
I understand that, but it definitely tweaked when I was aware that it was happening again. I was like, God damn daylight saving time. It should just be half an hour difference, and it should never change. I don't want to revisit this whole topic, but I'm like, it seems like such a simple fix to not have to move your clocks.
Speaking of simple fixes, I'm off this week, which not everyone may know, but I took a week vacation, a staycation, if you will, and when my lovely wife paid for a spa treatment for us, and I went and I had a massage today. Have either of you guys been for a massage delivered by a professional, not like a loved one's massage, but like a real massage?
Yeah, I've had me a few real massages.
No. But I am a real masseuse.
Okay.
For the ladies.
Let's ignore that comment.
I've already blown way past it. Okay, so here's the thing. First off, Bo, you should totally do it sometime. It's really great, pretty relaxing, but also it strikes me as like I like to think of myself as not a weird or gross guy. Like I'm you know, I don't have an abundance of body hair. I don't sweat very easily.
Wait, back that up. So weird guys have body hair?
You're basically describing both sweaty and hairy.
I'm just saying, like
you're like weird people, like Bo.
I don't mean to single out Bo or the late Robin Williams, but the point is that like this, I come in and like you have to specify if you want a male or a female masseuse, and Jesse did it for me and specified a lady, which whatever, thank you, Jesse. Wow. But at the same point, I couldn't care less, and I've had both male or female masseuses. But like if I'm, she's this fairly small lady and all that sort of stuff, and I'm like kind of a regular guy, so in terms of size and hairiness and all that sort of stuff, but like it occurs to me that like you must have to like as a massage person who is studying and is a very detailed sort of technique, they have to know like all the muscles. It's like it's not just there's a lot to it, is what I'm saying. So it's very cerebral in many ways, but at the same time you have to deal with like sometimes like really gross people, and maybe she's like, this guy's really gross, look at his feet, and I can't blame her, my feet could do better, but like I just think there's being a masseuse is kind of I was talking to Jesse about it. I was like what is the ceiling in terms of career as a masseuse? Like do you just be like, okay, well, I'm hired by a spa, so I've reached the top of my profession? Like, what do you do?
I imagine someone might actually be passionate about it. Like, let's not take the everyday masseuse, but let's take the A-type, prototypical, I want to be a masseuse type people. They have to, they probably don't have the hang-ups that we do about touching and personal space and things, and even the images of, like, thinking of people as gross or not. Like, they're just not wired that way. I'd have to imagine,
and they also probably get a variety. If you said a lot of gross people, that's probably true. And they also probably get to massage a lot of attractive people. Maybe people that are like out of their league, but are like, oh, I get to rub this person's body because it's my job.
Don't let Mike become a masseuse.
It's occurred to me. Well, that's what a masseuse does. They rub your body. I've had a massage, mostly from men actually, and they rub your body all over.
All over.
Go
on.
But it's funny, you made me think, because I often thought, because doctors are very well esteemed in our society. Like, she's a doctor, or he's a doctor. And you're like, oh. But mostly a doctor, someone's coming to the doctor's office like, doc, I got some kind of discharge happening here. Like mostly they're dealing with disgusting stuff of the human body, yet we're like, oh, a doctor. Yeah. And it's like, it's hard to be a doctor, but often they're just looking at nasty, gross problems people have with their bodies.
So that reminds me of a story.
People are disgusting.
It reminds me
they're looking at it, and they're wearing gloves, and there's a nurse or a nurse does the work. I don't know.
Because I was going for an STD check, and I'm pretty sure she was a doctor. She was very attractive. She said, "Pull down your pants."
The STD machine
she was like, "Pull down your pants," and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna pull down my pants. There's my wiener out, and then she jammed a Q-tip into my penis, and I was like, this isn't fun. And imagine that being your job. Somebody comes in and is like, I think I have an STD. He's like, well, take off your pants and let me stick a Q-tip in there, and like in there, like it's
they
horrifying.
do like kind of gross.
And it was
stuff,
worse because she's like handling my scrot. She's got to
Yeah,
steady it and put it like it's not like she
representation,
just
but
tries
thank
to
you.
push it. She's got to clutch the stuff and get it in there, and there's nothing
I
sexy
really
about
do
it.
apologize for the direction this.
No, but
No,
it's just
no, but
human body problem.
she's a doctor. It's a professional. Someone needs to do it. And if she happens to be attractive, there's nothing sexy about it. I didn't walk out of there going like, oh, sweet. I was like super embarrassed. I was in pain. And I was probably being a big baby about it because really it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and just think we're of the age where pretty soon we're all going to have to be getting our prostates examined. And just think of that when you're the doctor, you have to do the old finger prostate butt exam.
Oh, I'm dreading that day. It comes up. I think about it.
With continually older and grosser men. Like, men are not getting more attractive as they get older. They're getting less. And you have to check their butts with your finger more. So being a doctor, that's why they get paid the big bucks. Not because of the esteem, because of the disgusting stuff they have to do.
Yeah, so masseuse is probably like, at least I don't have to stick my finger in anyone's butt. This is a great job.
Well, geez, speaking of disgusting things we have to do, I'm more than eager to start the random topic generator and move on.
All right, Mike, give it a go.
I regret this choice of conversation. I've learned a lesson.
I liked it. This is one of our best ones, I think. I like talking about butts. All right, Mike, give it a pull.
You should have been a doctor, Bob.
Right. I feel like Crofton's super opposed to the idea of me being a doctor.
I wouldn't go see you.
Yeah. The topic today is flying cars.
Oh, sweet. We've got.
I guess this is a fictional.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, but it's a real idea that exists out there.
It's an idea.
It's a real thing that could. I mean, I think we have planes, and planes are not cars. But if you just shrink down the plane cabin to a point...
Go on, Bo, Professor.
If you shrink down the plane cabin to a size similar of that of a car, I mean, you have a flying car.
You are aware that there are small planes.
You are aware that 20 years ago, there was like no internet, and if I told you you'd have the power of the internet in your pocket on a cell phone, you'd be like, go read your Arthur C. Clarke 2001 science fiction novel.
But also keep in mind that if you go back to the 1960s, people were like, in the year 2000, we're all going to be driving around in flying cars and living on the moon. And none of that happened.
The quintessential, I think, of the Jetsons, which was set in 2062. And it was like 100 years after. But like I've read multiple times, like they talk, especially in our discussion on Star Trek, we talked about this, about how science fiction ideas lead to the spurring of the imagination in scientists and in the way that we grow as a society, and things keep evolving. And I love science fiction, and I keep trying to think of story ideas for writing and all that sort of stuff. And right now the big thing in terms of transportation is like self-driving cars, right? Like as this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And like I'd like to think that when I'm old and gray, most cars will be at least self-driving cars, and which was a science fiction conceit in everything from Minority Report to other science fiction things. So I would like to think flying cars is one of those things that people have an interest in moving towards. It's in so many different science fiction properties, and sometimes when you're walking around a congested city, or like you're in the freeway and you just look up and you see all this open space, you think to yourself, geez, how could we pollute that?
Well, it's funny because I think it's the first thing that came to mind when this topic came up to me was that if we get flying cars, they'll be self-driving cars. And what's funny about that, like, that's what will have to happen. But in my brain, if I want a flying car if such a thing existed because I want to drive it around. I wanted to be able to kind of like hover and go to some weird place, that you can't get to in a car just because you have a flying car. But like the fact is, if everyone had a flying car where they're like, "Sweet, I'm gonna go for a spin in my flying car," you'd basically just litter a city with corpses of stupid humans because there is no way that flying. Like, just imagine freeways flying that are all piloted by someone just like looking around trying to check their blind spot, and then they're like, "Oh shit, I forgot to check my blind spot. I crashed into the car next to me," and then your car comes down and goes into a building. It's really bad idea. Like, flying cars are actually a terrible idea if you don't have something like anti-gravity, which we don't have. Uh, so it's like
Yes.
the fail safes are not there, and it's just like you can have redundancy systems or whatever, but like if it crashes into another car that's flying, it's gonna come down in a big heap, and if it's in anywhere near a city, it might just really cause a lot of damage. So I feel like the only way those things are gonna work is if it's like computers controlling the whole system, because like you can't trust human beings.
So practicality aside, is it something that is worthwhile pursuing? Like, there's obviously, to reach that point, we'd have to put as a species a tremendous amount of energy and resources into. Is this something worth having, or like should we be like, what is the future of transport if it's not like we know we're heading towards self-driving automated vehicles? Past that, is does that make sense?
Yes.
Is it a good thing to
Yes.
have these things?
Yes, because we did an episode just recently about parking tickets. And so I feel like with the advent of flying cars, we will also have flying spaceports, so that we can
Yeah, like you'll go up, you're like, sweet, there's parking available next to that cloud. You go over there, and then you come back, and then there's a parking ticket on your hood. You're like, God damn it!
This is a no parking cloud.
How do they get up here? God.
But I feel
But,
like, because if you live in an apartment building, for example, I wouldn't have to park on the bottom floor. I could pull up next to, the door on the outside of my place, hook in my car, and
I love
get
Fifth Element, like.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been thinking of this whole time. Is when you were talking about driving, and like I was imagining Bruce Willis, like, nose diving his car in the fifth, in the fifth.
Yeah,
element.
like.
and then like, that in turn was, derived from Blade Runner and all these other things. Pretty much every version of the future for the past few years. I saw this episode of Doctor Who a few years back where it was set like in a future, on a future Earth or something, where they're just like everyone's perpetually stuck in traffic, and the whole episode takes place in like this multi-level
it's a good
traffic
episode.
jam.
It's a good episode. I've seen it. I like that one a lot.
And so like
they live their whole lives in the traffic jam.
Yes, people who have just that are living in their cars in this traffic jam. What I just wonder is, like, it seems like almost every version of the far enough future that we think of involves flying cars. So is this an absolute destination that we're for sure gonna eventually head in, or is it just like, and I know it seems like ridiculous, it seems like far away and fantastical and all that sort of stuff. We have airplanes now, and it's like at one point that technology's got to improve. It feels like it's been like we've had when did the Wright brothers take off, in like 1913 or something crazy like that? Like
barely 100 years.
Yeah. But like it feels like since the 60s or whatever, since Don Draper was taking his planes or whatever, that it's been fairly stagnant in terms of air travel.
Yeah, since the 60s, a lot of things have been stagnant, including like space travel, which is only now starting to kind of like pick up steam again. So I mean, like, I think that there will be almost any sci-fi thing you think about, given enough time, is a possibility. And even right now, like, I'm sure you guys have seen these videos. They're basically prototypes of flying cars, which look awesome, by the way. Like, I saw this one, and it looked like a motorcycle with these 4 giant fans, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and this guy was riding it. It looked like a motorbike. I'm like, I want that thing. It looks awesome. But they're also misleading at the moment, because also the thing about airplanes and like they require a lot of space, and they use a lot of fuel, like a jet plane compared to a car is a lot less efficient. So if you have like a little thing and you think of an airplane as being cumbersome because it requires like a runway to take off, and I assume if I have a flying car, I want it to go like right up in the air. It's not like here's my 200-foot runway down the street. That just doesn't make sense for me. But to do that requires like tons of energy, right? And I think at the moment the problem is things like having energy dense enough and light enough to have in your vehicle and still get you somewhere. So like when you see these awesome like hovering little car things, or like, have you guys seen the video with the dude standing on basically a hoverboard and he's like flying around this lake? It's pretty awesome. And he's a Quebec guy actually who made this thing. It looks super sweet. He just like flies around this lake. He's standing on a hoverboard basically, and it worked. But they're kind of a misnomer because you're like, oh my god, I want that thing. But then you're like, it only flies for like 2 minutes and then it's out of juice, right? It's used all its juice. And it's kind of like that's the same thing with the flying car. You see and they're working on the prototypes. It's like, yeah, it flies, but like for what? 3 minutes? Like if I want a flying car, I want to like fly out to the mountains and go to like cool spots and explore and come back. You need it to be able to go for a while. And at the moment, we don't have dense enough energy storage in the form of fuel or electricity and batteries to let you do something like that. It requires so much energy.
What happened?
Crofton is muted.
Crofton, you're muted. I like how it was polite of you to let him interrupt you, even though he's muted, because you weren't finished what you were saying. Because that's like.
No, and thanks, guys. What I was gonna say is just like that's further along than I thought it was. Like those technologies and like if it's just there's electronics and different things that have come out that have very low battery life, and then through multiple generations or through refinement and even looking at solutions, and it could be down the pipe, you come up with ways to draw more energy and make things last longer. So all of that sounds fairly optimistic. Where I get like sort of like, I don't want to say doomy and gloomy, is like if it runs on clean energy, if this whatever these flying vehicles look like, if they run on clean energy, then that's fantastic. But like right now, we're trying to get off a dependence on petrol, and like we are not anywhere close, but we're making steps. Self-driving cars could definitely help. We're talking about Tesla and ethanol and all that sort of, all the steps that we're taking to eventually get to a point. So if we get to a point where we're able to make all land cars 100% clean, let's just say all land cars are 100% clean, but then some yahoo's like, hey, I invented this flying car and it takes jet fuel and it's going to pollute the shit out of the earth. And everybody's like, flying car, all right. And then we all jump back. Like, I mean, I feel like we're just refining what we have now, and to jump into a whole other arena that may require like, high pollutants or stuff like that may not be the smartest thing, when we should be spending energy, like really concentrating on all our energies in refining what we got now.
Yeah, and I think I actually think that's a good point, because, if you just to think about it like this with a car and how much energy it takes to, do. Okay, so you can push a car. I've pushed lots of cars. I've had a lot of shit cars that broke down, and you were like, oh, I'll put it in neutral, push it off the road. Yeah. Unless it's a giant car, you can push it, yourself. Yeah. Try now picking that car up. There's no fucking way you can pick up a car, but you can push a car. And that just gives you a sense of like, okay, how hard is it to roll something on the ground and how hard is it to lift it up? And then so your point about energy is like, it's a huge, huge consideration. And maybe because, I was talking about those things that actually work right now, and I think they mostly run on batteries. And so, yeah, you're pumping electricity into it. And right now there is there's been a limit on battery technology for quite a while. They keep saying there's going to be a breakthrough. Maybe that'll be it. But still, like, where are you sourcing that electricity from? And just the fact that if it takes that much more energy to just make your stupid car fly, rather than, you're like, I gotta go to the store and pick up some milk, and you get in your flying car and go like 5 blocks and set it down, versus roll over on your wheeled car, like it's gonna take so much more. It's so much more wasteful to take a flying car, even though it's sweet. Like it's not a good reason. And like a helicopter uses so much fuel. Like these things cost like. You hear things like it's $1,000 an hour to fly a helicopter or something like that.
What we're really talking about here is the fight with gravity. Like, how do we?
Yes, gravity is strong.
Gravity is literally holding the planet and everything we know together, and everything the way it is on the planet in part because it has to live in gravity for the most part. At least if it's out of the water. I don't know how it affects things in the water, but I assume gravity.
It's still affected by gravity.
Sure. Yeah, I just think when you're in water, you float. So it's like, is there less gravity? What is anyway? So not that we're doing a physics lesson here, but I'm like, but I'm not falling on the earth as quickly. But it's probably because
you're in something.
There's resistance because
It's not resistance. It's density stuff.
Okay, so the water has density, so therefore I don't.
Yeah, and you're generally like or about as dense as water. But you're much less dense than.
So some would say you're denser.
You're about the same. That's why you're like neutrally buoyant in water, right? Because you're about the same. You're made of water, so you're about the same density.
Okay, so it's like when you. Well, never mind. It's a dumb example.
It has nothing to do with gravity. Go on with.
But anyways, but no. The point is gravity. Like the point is solving how to defeat it. When I say cost effectively, I mean the cost being the energy resource that it currently takes to defeat gravity, say with airplanes, which is quite a bit, right? Like it's got to build a very sophisticated machine to get off the ground. It's got to be fueled properly. It's riddled with dangers, so you have to be extra safe with it. You can't just quickly pump one out and sell it at a used flying car sales shop.
Well, and even with, I just want to, because your point about airplanes, like, because I got some hippie friend, Janice. You guys know my friend Janice. I think you've met her.
Yeah, she's great.
Hi, Janice.
I think she has listened to this podcast before. Anyways, and she works in clean energy stuff, like solar panels and stuff like that. Okay. And she lives her principles. So she was going out west, and we're in the kind of eastern side of Canada for any listeners. And, west is far enough. I drove it a couple of years ago. It's like 4 solid days of driving. And she was just going out there for I don't know, a week or something. And she drove 4 days and then 4 days back to stay out there for a week. And I was like, man, why don't you take a plane? And she's like, oh, it's way more, your carbon footprint's way lower. Even if you're in a plane with 200 people on it, if you drive alone in your car, she said it was less of a carbon footprint than getting on the plane with 200 people. That's how much fuel those things use. And I was like, wow, I did not realize that. Because when you're in a car driving for 4 solid days, you're like, man, I'm polluting a lot, is how it feels. But the plane uses that much fuel that even if it's taking 200 people, it's still polluting way, way more. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but if you think about like there's ultralights that are essentially gliders / motorized aircraft that for 1 maybe 2 people, and you can take off, and there's regulations around where you can fly them and this sort of thing. They fall in the same realm as sort of hang gliders and all that, but they're a little 2 person vehicle that flies. But what they lack is, for the most part, is, first of all, they require a sizable amount of expertise to run, but secondly, as Mike mentioned earlier, if you want a car that is self-flying, you want total convenience, because that's what you have now. You can pull your vehicle out of your driveway and go. You're not going to an airport or going to requiring a runway to take off. And Bo, your mentioning of gravity and as Mike said earlier about the, like, until we have a solution, like a convenient anti-gravity solution, it's all going to be any sort of solution towards flying cars is going to be haphazard, I guess, at best. And I recognize that. I think, though, like, if I'm thinking about a utopic future for mankind in terms of like I mean, let's think about it. If you had, in an ideal way, if you had a clean flying car that was automated in such a way that there weren't the accidents that might happen were mentioned were much less common and all that, everything was automated, then I mean, you wouldn't have to, the amount of, say, roads that you would have to build and that sort of thing be way less. The amount of blasting through the environment you'd have to do be way less. I mean, like, ideally, if they worked well and they were clean energy, then I mean they would be amazing. I would think. Like I don't see much in the way of The downsides are the accidents would be extremely bad, and if you could avoid that somehow through like automation, then amazing. And like the amount of energy right now it takes to defy gravity. So those are two big workarounds. Like you need to get around those. But if you could, it feels like this would be a net positive for people.
The road idea is one. I'm like, that's a solid point because I'm like, man, the network of roads and to maintain those roads, and in this country and the United States too, there's always this conversation about crumbling infrastructure, and you think of these freeways with all these concrete overpasses and stuff like that, and it'd be interesting to factor in what impacts those things have and weigh those against future efficiencies and energy, and that is a pretty interesting.
Yeah,
but even if it's funny. Oh, sorry, Bo. Go ahead.
No, I agree because with flying cars, we don't need any of that. Let's say if it just becomes accepted, right? Like, I guess even with flying cars, you'd have flying truckers. Like you wouldn't need the roads for goods and services because commodities.
You have computers doing it.
Well, there's that too. But to get bananas to your city and your grocery stores, you'd have a flying banana truck.
But then the other thing about that, because there's talk about the bringing back of the Zeppelin, or the blimp,
what?
the
Who
lamer
wants to bring
version.
back the Zeppelin?
Oh, I've seen a lot of things. And this has been around for a long time.
Germans.
Like we're talking heavy lift Zeppelins or blimps.
Okay.
That would be helium powered. Though I heard recently that we're entering a shortage of helium in the world.
Oh, really?
You know that they mine helium? I was like, that's where it comes from? I figured it was some like chemical plant or something where they made helium, but they just dig it up out of the ground. Isn't that
So there's
weird?
a limited supply of helium.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's in the ground, and then you drill down, and you're like, oh shit, here's some helium. We can sell this to clowns and stuff.
Yeah,
So apparently,
you know what's wrong is they haven't made that movie. Like there's There Will Be Blood with the oil. Where's my helium movie? I think a lot more people would be aware of helium if they wouldn't just make oil movies.
Yeah. Anyways, my sister-in-law is always complaining about it because she works in the in a hospital, and they use things like liquid helium to cool super magnets for MRI machines, and there's a shortage of helium, and she's like, why are people putting it in balloons? And I was like, well, the clown.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, like helium's a really useful thing, and to just put it in balloons and like let it fly away is like stupid. And he was like, why would you just let it go away?
I've never heard
Because literally, if you take helium and let it go, it goes up it goes into space. You're like, it's gone forever.
I feel like you've shedded some ignorance away. Like we did a show about ignorance. I had no idea any of what you just said to me 2 minutes ago, and my brain feels
I think it'd be funny if helium was also the secret ingredient to cure cancer, and it's like the clowns are like, look, I talk funny, kids.
they do like a longevity study, and like the average clown lives to be 130. You're like, what's up?
They never get cancer.
My point is that for things like freight and stuff, helium and bringing back the blimps has been, now it's not quite what I think it was a flying car, but if you make them big enough that they can carry like tons of freight, and apparently it's like they move slower, but they don't use as much energy because they essentially are kind of anti-gravity, or they're balancing out, the effect of gravity through this lighter than air, again, it's density thing, and that's neat if we can find the helium, but it's like, that's not a flying car. You get in like a blimp and you go like super slow somewhere. It's not the same and get blown around by the wind, as just getting your sweet flying car and driving someplace. Yeah. And I was thinking again, like how, it was like a sci-fi idea, but it's also, and like a lot of sci-fi fantasy are lumped together, it's also a fantasy idea. Like when I think about a flying car, I equate it with freedom, where you're just like, you get in this vehicle, you just go someplace. You go someplace, where right now you're limited by roads, and
where we're going, there will be no roads. Wait, what's the line from Back to the Future? Where we're going. Damn it! I used Back to the Future to open this show.
I know it was gonna be like a clever connection.
God damn it.
You blew it. But yeah, like that's what I think of. You get in your flying car, and then you just go wherever. You're like, wow, isn't that awesome? You could just take your flying car and explore the world. It sounds awesome, but it's sort of like out of touch with reality. And I often try to come back to reality with my ideas and my verdicts, and also thinking about like why do we commute? Because you're muted again, Crofton, incidentally, but
no, I'm mumbling to myself. I think it's where we're going. We won't need roads.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's Doc Brown going, roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads, Marty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Continue.
But then they do go to a place and there's air roads. I remember that they're following the air. There's like, anyways, whatever. Because you would need those too. Because if you just took off your flying car and drove up in the air, your neighbor's like, sweet, going for a ride, and just side swipes you and you both die. But again, I think it's this idea of freedom. And then he's like, why do we commute? And you're like, oh, wouldn't it make commuting so much better and blah, blah, blah. But I think technology is going to take us in a different place where it's like we're not going to need to commute as much because we'll just be able to seamlessly work from wherever we want. Like, I feel like that's, you think of like being stuck in a traffic jam being the freedom of your flying car. But in reality, you just be like, well, I just won't go to work. I'll work from home because I, have all these interfaces and connectivity. Who cares where you live? You can work anywhere. Like, I think that's the future, and that the flying car is at best going to be a leisure toy for the rich. Like, that's what it's probably going to be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hang on. Because
in the short term, maybe, but in the long term.
Sorry, Crawford. The thing that's great about this idea, I just want to point out, is that it is an idea, not a reality. So when you come up with arguments like we could bump into each other, well, we could have force fields. Like, we could have proximity detectors, like, that automatically make things. Like, we can build other science fiction ideas on our science fiction idea. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not worth pursuing. Because I think when we talk about the idea of flying cars in the context of today, since they don't actually, there are prototypes and experiments, but nothing that truly exists as a mass commercial product or as a thing, we have to say, is it worth expending energy on? It's like the helium question, but for cars. Should we be using helium in our balloons and balloon-related technology?
But, I mean, some people would just say that, like, all this, any new development is market-driven. And it's like, I guess the question is more like, do people want flying cars? And I feel like the answer is probably yes. Probably yes, people want flying cars. And if people want flying cars, then there will be flying cars. It's more like, will they be affordable for the common people or practical? Like,
not originally, just like the Tesla cars are not affordable right now. Like, they will be. It's funny because, not to bring everything back to the Legend of Zelda that just came out and I've been playing and has been occupying 90% of my
where did that come from?
My brain thought. But this game that I've been playing, super amazing, by the way. One of the big things that differentiates it from other type of games that has come before is that you can climb everything. Like, literally, there's no invisible walls. Your guy can just climb. If there's a mountain, it makes no sense. He's just climbs up it, just goes. You can literally go anywhere. And I realized, like, having played a shit ton of video games in my life, believe it or not, that this had been something that I had not really ever, like, it's almost revolutionary when you sort of experience it, because you're just used to having these limitations all the time. You've just grown accustomed to them. And when Mike is explaining the fantasy of flying cars, the impression, the freedom that I get when I'm playing this game as opposed to the ones I played before, it makes me think like the people have when somebody experiences it, when somebody like tries a prototype or whatever, it's going to be like virtual reality. Virtual reality is a slow growing thing. It's going to be an aha moment for that person, and then eventually we're going to get to a stage where these things will be commonplace and existing. I guarantee the three of us will be long dead for us to get that far along, but who knows? Like, things have moved fast in the 37 years.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, like, if it could be sooner than you think. I'm reading this book right now. It's about technology advances, and I only mentioned it because this one person who works in like this technology field had this quote where they're like, you know how when you look in the rear view mirror of your car and it says objects in this mirror are closer than they appear. And then this person said, well, now that's looking out your windshield. So objects in the future are closer than they appear. Like they were saying that's how much technology is ramping up. So when I think of stuff like the fact that self-driving cars are going to come online soon, well, are driving around in California and could be driving around in our city, Ottawa, pretty soon, apparently, because we have some tech sector here and that are going to try to get into that. So if that comes around, and I've been hearing about these breakthroughs in battery technology like about to happen, and I've seen the prototypes of these flying cars that already exist, like drone technology and lightweight materials have made it so that you can make a flying car. It's just the energy density is not there. But if all these things, if the breakthrough in batteries comes soon, which it probably will, because people want better batteries, and then you have these AI technologies which are able to drive the thing, so that even if you drive it manually, it can do exactly what Bo said, where like, yeah, you're not going to crash into your buddy because all these cars are sort of sending out signals saying don't crash into anyone. This could be something that exists in like 15 years, which sounds crazy, maybe even less.
Hey, do you know that augment robot arms now exist?
Yeah, like all this stuff.
They literally can read the electric signals in your hand, and you can do hand motions.
Yeah, though those have been kind of around for a while.
I can remember watching a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie called Cyborg, where the concept was very science fiction, and yet there are people now walking around without an arm who can now manipulate things using robotics with it.
Yeah, I mean, all to say that technology is moving fast, and it's only going to move faster. So like, and I would say if anything's going to hold the flying car up, it's probably going to be regulatory stuff, because technology is speeding up, but like I'll tell you, government processes not so much. So in terms of like the different jurisdictions, like wading through, like how are you going to secure borders? Everyone's got a flying car. They're like, sweet, I think I'll just go fly over the border. Like, and like it's really complicated and messy. So I bet you like that'll be the thing that will really stop their mass proliferation.
I've got the idea. You'll have a fence of border drones that you'll have to erect, because we do have drones. They are a thing, like many different types of drones. So they don't carry passengers, but they can. The concept's there on a micro scale. You can buy a consumer drone that can float around for quite a bit, right?
Or maybe it's just like, again, it could just be something written into the computer program of it. If it's like you're flying your flying car in this country, you can't leave it.
It just self-destructs.
Yeah, well, no,
you're leaving Canada without authorization.
I like how that's. You could just turn, but I guess below enough good too.
You got to make an example of the immigrants.
I like how Bo's a designer. Like, what are we gonna do to keep them in? It must explode. Like, but why don't we just turn them around? Like, no, explode.
Yeah, okay.
You should run for the Conservative Party here in Canada, Bo.
But yeah, so like I don't know. Like, I mean, I think this stuff could be close on the horizon, and it's just like how we deal with it. I think the cost is going to be prohibitive too, just because, you know, even if you go to like ride around on like a jet ski or something, those things are expensive and they're not as complicated as a flying car.
I think we'll see flying cars. I would think in a densely populated area like say Japan or China, in places where we have a lot of room here in North America. We have a lot of big ideas, I think, and a lot of capability, but I feel like we see this become a thing somewhere else in the world. India, maybe. I don't know. Not that India is known for, I don't think, big technological advances in a mass consumption scale, but I would just assume in densely populated areas, flying cars would be better than in sparse ones.
It is funny because I see the two, like, yes, you're right. Yes, like in big cities like Tokyo or whatever, you definitely imagine it because they want to use that extra space for transport instead of having everyone glutted on the bottom level. I get that. But also I get what Mike's sort of fantastical in terms of go anywhere. Like this country is, like there's so many unpopulated areas because like we have great like amazing lakes and just different places around that are just fantastic. We just haven't built roads up to them yet, or they're not connected to the grid, so to speak. So I understand like those are the two extremes, like the heavily populated and the sparsely populated, but both of which would benefit from something like this. I guess
because Wicked Kitten in the chat mentioned that like the flying car for a long period, you might still have your regular car, but the flying car would be for extended visits for long distances. Like you use it for a specific type of travel that isn't necessarily flying, but doesn't need to be local to go get milk, like that in between spot, like going to your cottage. Instead of it taking an hour to drive to your cottage, it takes you 20 minutes on a fast speed flying car.
But that's like for the rich person, like who's got like, oh, here's my flying long distance traveling thing, and it
trickles down to the middle class.
But
right?
I mean, I said it before. I think the middle class is trickling away, in case you haven't noticed. But
Okay.
I do think a plaything of the super rich for sure. That will there's no question in my mind.
I mean, they already have private jets. Like they have, like the rich have private airline services.
Exactly. So soon, but they'll probably want personal ones that just fly around or whatever. And even if again, we're talking about hypotheticals here. Even if it was accessible to everyone, and all these hurdles were overcome, and everyone could just have their sweet flying car, and then again, come back to like, is it good or not? If we see it in the context of like a city, like Bo was talking about, like Tokyo or any of these like super densely populated things, and then being like, with automation controlling them so that it actually functions well, I can see how it smooths things in a city. But Crofton's point, which is the one that appeals to me, about like, oh, you could just go and explore. And I think our country, where like I like to go canoe camping, see our episode on camping. Where you go to see these places that no one goes, and it's like fun, but it's hard to get to them. So long as it takes a week to get to a place where you're like, oh, I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere. You got your flying car, you could just zoom in and be like, check this place out. And then, though that appeals to me, I also, in my head, it exists in this idea that I'm the only one doing that, right? But if you have like 1 million people, and if this happens, as population grows, you have millions of people driving around their flying cars going everywhere. Honestly, that's not good. That's not going to be a good thing, because
you're going to keep finding a sweet camping spot and then be like, damn it, there's a freaking people here already.
And then, and just people being like, oh, I want to go look at like the caribou in the north, and you're like screwing them up, and like we have to go and explore these places is what's appealing to me about it. But it's probably not good for those places. We have so few wild places. I like the idea of like I can just go and check it out, but so is 1 million other people, and then ruin those things.
It's not creating more people, so you're just like you're diluting your people a little bit. Like, and people will still live where their jobs are, and they're only going to go out, X amount of distance. I don't think
where the jobs are. Remember my point? Everyone's going to be connected everywhere.
Then in which case, instead of being densely situated in certain areas like we are in the south edge of Canada, we'll be spread out a little more. Like, I mean, we are severely underpopulated for the amount of land that we have. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you get some Yahoo that goes, oh, I'm gonna go ride this caribou, yeehaw. Like that sucks. I get that, but like I think that there's 30 million plus Canadians. I mean, if they spread out a little more, you look at Vancouver, you look at Toronto, you think to yourself like, man, it would be better if people were spread out a little more, and this is something that would enable it, I think. So anyway, yes. I'm pretty much done on flying cars, this fictional technology that we're talking. But if you guys have more,
no verdicts. Let's do it.
All right. I think it is verdict time. We've had a lot to say on the subject, and I think we need to put our heads together and come up with whether we think this is a good idea or not. I'm just looking for the farm animals.
Yeah, because I was going to say, this is some classic stalling going on.
It's total stalling.
Now we've come to the point in the show where we've all discussed this topic for quite a while, and we need to work together here to come up with some good ideas. Where the hell did we put that file?
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Order in the court. I'd like to send a special thanks to Mike for picking up on my stalling cue and providing some stalling of his own by repeating literally everything I said. He's like, yeah, it's like you just said, blah, blah, blah. All right. I'm going to go first?
No, I'll go first.
All right. Crofton wants to go.
No, I'll go. Go ahead, Crofton.
Yeah, all right, sweet. So here's the deal with this one. It's funny because we've talked about putting our topics into various buckets before, categories, if you will, and this definitely like falls in the same one as like virtual reality and some of these things that we've talked about in the past that are borderline fictitious, but also likely going to happen. And so it's tough to know what sort of approach to have on them because there's so much that's unknown, right? Like it's just like wildly speculating. We can come up with a utopic version of flying cars, or we can come up with like these gas guzzling monstrosities that are damaging the environment, sending like hillbillies to ride caribous, like we can come up with whatever we want in terms of these things. So it's tricky. And I do think they are, as Mike said, like if it was market driven, people do want these things. It's one of those science fiction tropes that we've been coveting for years and years and years. And I still really like this thing. And I haven't even driven for that long. I only got my driver's license in my early 30s, and I feel like I don't need my flying car to be controlled by me. It can be controlled by a system. But if it allows me and millions of others to get places quicker, easier, with less of an environmental impact and more scenically, because I'm looking down on things, then I mean, that's awesome. Like, it really sounds cool. As to the limitations of it, as to the worst case scenarios, like, I mean, I don't think it's enough for me to come down negatively on this. And like, because it's not a real thing, I don't even have to take that risk. So I'm going to say the concept of flying cars are good.
There's the fanfare for good. All right, Mike, you want to go next? I think I have to close it.
You wanted to go first. You go ahead.
All right, I'll go next. I think let's. So I like the idea of flying cars just because they're cool. Like, without even any other rationale, like a lot of people, just the idea that you can take a car, make it fly around seems great. However, and you guys failed to bring this up in any sort of form of a joke, but I don't have a license and I don't drive. It just feels like we went a whole episode without cars, and not one of you were like, Bo, your opinion doesn't really count because you don't drive a car, which is actually something I've heard a lot when I'm talking about regular car stuff. And it seems like, how would I know really firsthand what the advantages would be in terms of, like, how, it does have zero impact on my life except for the space taxis I'd take, or air taxis.
So what is it, good, bad, or bullshit? I don't know what's happening here.
Hey, Crofton got a turn. Now let me have a turn. So I don't know. I just think it's cool. I like the idea of being able to fly around. I like the idea of perhaps, I feel like I'd be more apt to buy a car if I knew it flew around, because that seems awesome. And I like everything Mike said about the exploration. I don't know. Apart from that, I feel like I don't have anything meaningful to say on the subject.
You have a verdict?
We talked a lot about it, but I'm like, I can't tell if it's good or not. I mean, I just think it's cool, so I'm going to say it's good. Let's keep it simple.
I'm surprised, Bo. If you asked me about this topic and who this would be most in their wheelhouse, I would have said Bo.
See, yeah, I like everything around the idea of the flying car, which is we're defeating gravity. So there's other cool stuff we can do there. We can blanket the Earth in internet. If we can figure out how to make flying cars, we can make flying Wi-Fi spots and blanket us with wireless interconnectivity that's not necessarily at a satellite level, but at a sky level. And the AI implications that we talked about, I think, is really cool. Like, I'm all for it, but the actual car itself, like, I'm not a carophile. When people talk to me about cars, my eyes glaze over, and I'm like, okay. My carburetor broke, man. And I'm like,
Yeah, but here, you've someone who's taken a lot of rides in my car. You've been in a lot of cars in your life, even though you don't drive one. Yeah. And who cares? Because it'll be computer driving it, so you don't need to have a license. You just get in and say.
I mean, I wasn't going to take it there, but I'll say when we're all in the hive mind, we won't really need any of these things, but I still think it's good.
In the hive mind. I hope you're alone in there when it comes.
That's not the point of a hive. I'm already alone in my own hive mind right now.
I'm not going in the goddamn hive mind when it comes.
Okay.
I'll stay out here in the real disgusting world and die.
You'll be part of the slave case that serves the hive mind in the meat
so
space.
Flying cars, I'm going to say my verdict. Bo, that was the most convoluted one I think I've heard from you. Not saying something. Okay, so flying cars. Now, I said at some point that I tend to try to bring things back to reality. Boring, shitty reality. And I think there's a lot of negatives to this as well. And I pointed out that the fantasy of it, and I think that appeals to me. But I acknowledge that it's a fantasy. It exists in certain contexts in my brain, and I want that. But that's not what it's really going to be.
Okay.
Like, it's going to be like something control. Like when it comes along, it's going to be kind of part of a mass transit system. You get in, it takes you someplace. It probably won't be that exciting once you do it. I don't know. I just really kind of think this whole topic has a certain odor to me, and it's one of bullshit. And I'm going to give it the verdict of bullshit.
Oh, we should. You want?
Yeah, there you go. A double bullshit. I don't know that it needed that. I just think it's like we get so hung up on what like there's other reasons. It's kind of like, why do you want the flying car? And even when I think of my own fantasies of like, oh, I want to go and explore this place, and then I think, well, I've done that kind of stuff, like going camping or hiking or whatever, and it was probably more rewarding to like clamber up the rock or canoe in there, you know. It's like you're losing something by doing this, and it's just like what it comes down to is like convenience and kind of like laziness. And I don't know that we need to give human beings more of that. I mean, Bo wants to actually get rid of his physical body because he hates it so much and live inside a computer. That's how lazy he is.
Sounds awesome. Stop making it sound bad. It's a great
reason
idea.
To be more lazy. It's just like
it's not lazy if there's no choice.
Think about disabled people. They can't get to certain places.
Oh, don't get Mike started about lazy disabled people.
Mike hates disabled.
Yeah, but damn you, Mike. All right.
Actually, disabled's bad. We should say differently able.
Like ambulances, fire trucks, and like, you know, those should be the flying cars. Everyone else should have to either like connect through your technology device or just like take a flying bus.
Actually, flying emergency vehicles, that's another good one for flying cars. I'm glad you've joined our side, Mike.
Yeah, they exist. They're called the helicopters. They and in any case, I just think it's kind of a bullshit thing that it's just like we want it, and the real costs of it, I think, are not factored in, and it exists still in fantasy. And though those technological breakthroughs could happen, they haven't happened yet. So right now, this whole thing exists in a realm of bullshit. That's fine. Lots of things do.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay, stop making the thing go off. I'm trying to wrap it up here and move along.
Is that what you said to
give
your
the
masseuse?
Listeners what they want, which is to probably follow me on Twitter as soon as possible. So, all right. If you have thoughts on flying cars, or if you have topics you want to suggest, feel free to shoot us a line. goodbadbull@gmail.com is the email address. You can also visit our website, goodbadbull.com. You'll find all our shows there. You can sign up on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and all those podcast places. Give us a review if you would like. We love those 5-star reviews or comments, anything. Tell your friends if you like us. If you don't like us, don't tell your friends that we're good. Yeah, you can we're all individuals of individual natures. You can all follow us on our individual channels, starting with our own Doc Brown. I'm talking about Michael Hodgins. Michael, if people want to follow you, where can they do so?
They can follow me on the Twitter and enjoy my quarterly tweets at ML Hodgins.
You're doing quarterly. You've increased.
Yeah, I did.
You've increased the number of tweets per year. You sure you have the budget for such a big commitment and content?
I put some thought into it.
And Biff, if people want to reach you, how can they do so?
They can find me at Bo Schwartz on Twitter. I'm going to take this moment to pimp out a thing. If you go to youtube.com/coreheroes, you can check out the VOD of our Heroes Charity Brawl that we did last weekend. We raised.
Can you tell me what that is?
So a bunch of Heroes of the Storm podcasters.
No, what's a VOD?
Oh, video on demand. Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
We did an episode on those, didn't we?
VODs?
We talked about blogs and vlogs or vlogs, and
no, I think it's
somehow we didn't talk about VOD the entire time. Video on demand, my friend. The video on demand of the Heroes Charity Brawl, where we raised $5,337 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, is on there. We had a lot of fun doing non-traditional, breaking the game, so to speak, to have our little fun there. So I just want to say, go check that out because it was funny. It's worth your time if you're into that kind of stuff.
And you can find me massaging my tweets at Crofton Steers on Twitter.
I thought it was kind of fortuitous, Crofton, that you used a reference to a movie that included a flying car, before we had the random topic. I mean,
I know. For the conspiracy theorists out there, you know who you are at Real Donald Trump, who think that we pre-select topics. This would give them ammo for that.
Look,
I'd
if,
love to
if,
get a
if they're
tweet from real Donald
if
Trump
they're-
saying "at good bad bull, really terrible show,
look
really sad."
if they're at real Donald Trump followers, they know not to buy iPhones and check Twitter because they have to pay for Medicare first. So, right? You guys hear about that? I can't remember who came out and said that, but
They just will choose not to pay for Medicare. I don't need Medicare.
yeah, but one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
guys. I don't
I'm
think it
healthy,
was
that'll
Trump
never
himself.
change.
Was like people were complaining about the new medical plan in the States, and then someone was like, "Well, if you'd stop spending all your money on iPhones, you could afford Medicare." It's like,
Yeah,
no, that's a huge price
There's a Republican
difference.
congressman. Bo, I do find it interesting how you always lament ending the show on a high, positive, jokey note, and then you're dragging us down into some sort of
Yeah,
mire of political talk.
Yeah, why are we talking about this? We were talking about the
Flying cars. We had flying cars. Mike
brought
even
it
gave
up.
me Back to the Future. We were going to set up for you like a great Back to the Future line. You could end the show on it. It would be glorious. It would be so funny. We'd all be laughing.
This is all
usual
invented. There's nothing of the kind
garbage.
forthcoming.
Did you just say the usual garbage?
Yeah, it's
Well,
the usual like.
We should
you know,
should tell Bo, that's it. You've got to find a spot now, Bo.
We're done.
thrilled
I'm not
to
saying
see you.
anything else.
Oh my god, you guys, you make my life hard.
That's what we're here for.
We
Sometimes
all-
I feel like that's why I was put on this video.
Wait,
I have a
guys.
question. By the way, to the people in the chat room, someone Cold Filtered asked us what's the future outlook on artificial intelligence, and I said we did an episode on it, right? We've done AI, but Wicked Kitten was like it's episode 21.
It's way
That's
back.
a
and I
long time
honestly
ago.
think if there is a topic I would like to redo, it's AI because I've done some deep thinking on AI recently.
Oh God.
I have been. I got some ideas and I would share them, but we need to learn.
It is
It
funny.
wouldn't be
too.
random though. That's the problem.
Well, we don't always
AI
have
has
to do
probably
random.
changed so much since then.
It actually has. Because that was like 2 years ago, and you might be familiar with something called Moore's Law, where computing power and technology doubles every like 2 years. And the outlook now, compared to when we last talked about it, or at least what I've learned about AI since then, I'm like, man, my brain has been more blown, and I have more to say on the topic.
Yeah. Also VR. Lots happened since we did that one.
It's like, what did I say for that bullshit? Yeah.
I discovered.
Also, like, when we hit episode 500, we're all going everywhere in our flying cars. We can be like, oh shit, we should revisit that episode. We should revisit that whatever number this is. Bo, that's a good ending point. You should end it there.
Yeah, I'm definitely ending it way earlier.
Oh God damn it! I just gave it to you. Oh.
Well, whatever. I can try and cut it for an intro or something.
Outlook on. I want to talk about AI now, but maybe another
Well,
show.
another time. I know Crofton really wants to play Zelda, and we did hold him up for an hour. So even though he's on vacation, every second counts away from his children.
It's surprisingly interesting to me
second
how
not spent with
little
his
I
family.
played Zelda this week.
Every
considering.
second not spent with his family while he's on vacation is super important to Crofton.
I just want to play Zelda. Is it so hard?
Yeah,
that's
sometimes
great.
life is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny though. Like the whole like when you're a kid and you have all this time, but as an adult, like you got all this money, you can buy whatever the fuck you want, but you got no time. Like
Right.
it's really true. It's annoyingly true.
Yeah.
So. Anyway.
Well, good
Yeah,
episode.
I'm
though.
not
I
shed any
think
tears for you. You're like, my sweet job and my week off paid, and I can't play enough video games. Like, wow. Grab me a goddamn river. Your life's pretty good.
I
Just
like the
enjoy
new
the
mic.
game.
I like the way the mic is evolving as a human being. It's super great. I love
that
it.
sounds sarcastic.
much you
First
need.
off,
No,
secondly,
it's genuine.
I want to go on a rant about my video game console purchase. Do you?
All right. The live stream viewers, you want to hear the rant?
Okay, go
No,
on.
All right, let's
You can-
continue.
Well, what? There goes Mike. God damn it! I can get nobody's attention on this shit.
hey,
No, go ahead. I'll
Look,
listen.
there's
to you.
viewers in the chat room. I'm here. I'm sitting here listening. Go on.
Okay,
You have an
look,
audience.
so here's the deal, Bo. I think you and I had a conversation about this the other day about hype and how hype, like, it's rare that sometimes you'll be like, you'll be so hyped up. Oh, I got to get this. I feel like really caught up in the hype and the
Yeah.
discussion that's going on and all
Yeah,
that. So I did not pre-order a Nintendo Switch. I did not pre-order Zelda or whatever. I don't know what I thought. I was like, this seems overhyped. This seems like whatever. There's only one game that comes out with it. I'm not going to get it. So then it comes out. All the reviews, everybody's gushing. They're going crazy. The podcast I'm listening to, everyone's like, "Oh, Zelda's so good, it's so amazing." And then I find like I played a lot of Zelda. I find myself being like, "Oh shit, I really want to play this game." Like the hype is just hooking in me, and I can't fight it. Now I didn't buy a Wii U because Zelda was simultaneously released as the last ever game for the last Nintendo console, the Wii U,
Right.
and the first ever game for the new console.
Mhm.
Mike's gone. Fuck
Yeah,
Mike.
just go. Just continue. I'm listening.
All right. So
Unless I don't matter.
So I had to choose essentially between being patient and buying, like trying to buy a Switch either for too much money online or like putting an order in and waiting for it, or going out and buying a used Wii U knowing that there's no other games ever coming out for it. But there is a backlog of games. Meanwhile, there's no games for the Switch. So I went out and I bought a used Wii U. So I bought a dead console for a fair amount of money. Like I would say I got a good deal, but they're selling pretty high price. And I feel like part of me feels a bit like a sucker for spending all this money on a dead console that I didn't buy throughout its entire lifespan.
Didn't you do that with the
Dreamcast? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I had no regrets on that.
So you have a track record of making bad purchases.
No, that was a good purchase. That was a good decision.
He's only listening to half the conversation.
No, but anyway, so I bought I got Mario Kart with it, and I'm buying this Mario game as well. It's all Nintendo exclusives that I missed, right? I got Bayonetta 2, which is another game that was only on that system. So there's some games that I'm picking up on, and the Switch has literally only Zelda right now, which is the only game that I'm playing. But it has a future. Whereas
so if you had bought the Switch, because it's like you would have played this sweet game, and then you would have gone back to what other gaming
the problem
systems
is
do you
there
have?
aren't any to buy.
All of them. So it wouldn't have been a big deal to wait for new games because you could just play on your computer or your PS4
Listen,
or
he could
whatever
have
the hell
played.
else. Yeah.
The point is about being in the zeitgeist because there's actually Horizon Zero Dawn was released for PlayStation, and you could have played that on your week off as well.
I know I could have played Horizon, and I thought about that, but I was totally into the Zelda hype, like literally. And
Switches
honestly,
are sold
as I
out,
play
Mike.
it,
That's why
I have no regrets. I'm really really enjoying Zelda. Is it a like $300 game? Because like I can't say that for sure, but it is like. I know at least I'm going to finish this game, and there's other games that I can play on the Wii U, and then eventually I'll buy a Switch, but like there's nothing coming out even this year that I think makes it super appealing to me. I bet Mario will be bumped to next year. And even then there are Mario games I could play on Wii U right now. So anyway, I kind of like I don't really regret it because I'm having so much fun playing Zelda, but it was a big purchase, and I did feel kind of stupid buying a system that is like dead now, but whatever. What are you going to do? Zelda's awesome.
Well, the good news is that
good.
it seems worth it because the praise has been pretty like there hasn't been this much praise about a game in a very long time, actually. Like unified, like just praise like, all over the map. Like this isn't kind of like, well, this game should be a good game. Like this is like people are literally floored by how much fun it is.
Yeah, they're saying it's one of the greatest games of all time, and I get where that's going, and I, as you know, Bo, huge fan of The Witcher 3, and this takes a lot of beats from The Witcher 3, but I'd say it's the difference between like if The Witcher 3 is like a dark adult mature fantasy, like I don't know, even darker than like Lord of the Rings or whatever. I'm trying to think of a darker older fantasy novel or whatever, but like the
Game of Thrones, pretty dark.
Oh, but yeah, there you go. Thank you. If The Witcher 3 is Game of Thrones, then Zelda is essentially Harry Potter, which is really is intended for a young it's intended for a younger audience, or it's intended to be more accessible, but it's also super enjoyable for an older audience. So because of that, it has more ubiquitous appeal. Whereas I wouldn't want any kids playing The Witcher 3. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's funny
not?
that you meant because like I'm enough interested and played enough Zelda back when I was into gaming that I'm kind of like I'm curious about this game, and I'm kind of like okay, I got a kid, he'll probably want to play this game, but then thinking like by the time he's in the games, he's only 2.5 now. Like this game will probably be like old, right? No one's gonna. Who knows what'll be out in like 5 years from now?
Yeah.
But think about like Ocarina of Time and some of those games that are still they're either being remastered and re-released. Nintendo's a master of that, or that people are still playing them and being like, hey, you know, play this game that I played when I was a kid. The Zelda games in particular.
I did enjoy Ocarina, and as you mentioned, my favorite part of that whole game was when you got to ride the horse out in the like big field between everything. And then when you were saying this
The
game
horse
is
tech
like totally
is like
open,
ridiculous.
that really
in this game.
appeals to me.
It
also
takes that and blows it into like that
Yeah.
is the whole
I believe it.
yeah.
Well,
yeah,
what it also made me think about, because the me of now, who I'm kind of like, as you guys know, I spent a lot of time in RL.
In
That's
Dead
real
Space. Yep, gotcha.
and you were like, you can just go anywhere, climb on anything, and I'm just like, but that's just like the actual world. like when I go like hiking in the woods, like I'd be like, hey, there's a stream, maybe I'll follow it, and you could just go there, you know. But a video game would be like fake wall, and now there's a video game that's sort of like real life.
But you're
Like,
you're not gonna find a magic shrine that you go down and you
you're not
get
gonna
like
hack apart some monster with a
a new power and like all that sort of stuff. I will say too also, Mike, because you said the other day when we were sitting, I was like, hey, do you guys want a podcast tonight? You're like, it's my rock climbing night. And when you said that, I was literally rock climbing in Zelda. And what's super hilarious is that there is literally, aside from a stamina meter that incrementally goes down, there is nothing that he cannot climb in the outside. It's so he's
not like real life.
yeah, exactly. So you're like, he's like pretty much like upside down on a like. Anyway, it's hilarious. Unless it's raining. If it's raining, things get slippery and you can't climb. Just like real life.
So to conclude, rock climbing's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for letting me rant.
Sure. No, it was great. And I'm anxious to hear about Zelda, because like I said, the praise on this thing is through the chain. Like, it's almost got me interested in considering.
And it's not
getting a
made by
Switch.
Blizzard. What the hell, bro?
I was thinking about that. Blizzard and Nintendo actually have quite a lot in common in terms of like how they're both they seldomly release products. They polish them to diamonds. You know, one of them tries to get you addicted to their dopamine hits, and the other just puts out like a beautiful, amazing game. But like, that was a Blizzard dispo for you. But
okay, Blizzard. Bo's a heavy addict. He doesn't mind.
yeah, he's like
Beauty's measured in different ways.
Yeah, I just yeah, Bo, it might be worth digging up. Like, I played a lot of games, but it might be worth digging up the exclamation mark and putting out an episode I could rant your ear off.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. We should dust off the old RSS feed for EXM and put out an episode.
Yeah,
so I'm definitely curious about the machine. I'm hearing a lot of good things.
All right, I'm gonna go to bed, everyone.
All right.
All right. Yeah, and we'll conclude it here too. But all to say is, like, Scott, I know, is playing the crap out of it. He bought a Switch, and we don't hear from him for long periods of time when he's on Slack, because we're playing Zelda. So it's a thing. Also, by the way, I hear Logan is also freaking
All right,
good.
see you guys later.
Bye.
Later, Hodges.
Just one last thing. I'm going to see it this weekend. I hear it's like really good.
Yeah. Jesse and I talked about, like, we may even go see it tomorrow. We're not 100% sure what we're doing tomorrow. The thing about it is, I know it's supposedly really good, like, and the reviews are good, but the problem about it for me, and this is funny to be discussing a superhero movie in this way, but it looks super depressing. And movies like there's a reason I haven't seen Moonlight yet, or I haven't seen 12 Years a Slave. This is making me sound horribly racist. What's a movie, that's a depressing movie that's about white people?
It's a depressing movie about white people.
Schindler's List. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't like watching those really depressing movies. I go to the theater more from escapism, which often is superhero movies.
Okay.
And this is like, that's the thing. I know it's going to be super good, but I know it's probably also going to be super depressing. So, don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Sorry, our stream just went dead. It distracted me. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stream's over?
It's just black now. I don't know what happened. Oh, there.
All right.
Because when Mike hung up, it ruined everything. Basically, everyone just sees your chin.
Oh, it's a sweet, sweet
just
chin,
watching your
kinda
chin
pointy.
right now, and I'm like trying to switch over to my camera, but for some reason it's not working.
All right.
So we're just gonna
Well,
leave it at that. And
Bo, it's 10:30, so that means I can get like maybe an hour and a half of Zelda in
oh,
before midnight.
congratulations! That's great. It's perfect.
Thank you, thank you. I'm also playing For Honor. I'd like to talk about that as well on the EXM. It's sweet.
Okay, well, let's figure that out maybe sometime soon. I want to. So, did you get a Switch yet?
No, I bought a Wii U. Did you miss my entire rant?
All right, live stream. I can't figure out how to get anything competent back. So, see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Super graceful exit. Till next time.
All right, bye everybody.